Hey everyone, welcome to this webinar, which is hosted by Microsoft MVPs and MCTs. So I welcome you all to this program, which is said to be from Copilot Factory Academy. And this is going to be led by Microsoft MCTs, and it's going to be a meetup over the webinar, which is like, with couple of sessions that we are planning over every month. And today we are at the very first session where we have our Microsoft MVP, Mr. Narasima Perumal, who is the founder of a co-founder of JiJi Technologies, who were a Microsoft partner as well, and they work deeply into Microsoft Office 365, SharePoint, and much more on AI agents as well. So I welcome Mr. Narasima Perumal, and the next 1 hour is going to be a talk with full of demos. And if at all, if you have any questions or something, you can keep it added over the chat, or we can even have the later session to discuss the questions then. Perumal, thanks for your time, and here is all yours.
Thank you, Boris. I think everything is set. I think you are able to see my screen and hear you clearly.
Yes, it's all good, Perumal.
Okay. Then I will go ahead. Right. Good morning. Thanks for joining this session. And I'm Narasima Perumal Chandramohan. I'm the co-founder of JiJi Technologies Private Limited, and I am the Microsoft 365 MVP for past years. And my company focuses on tenant-to-tenant migration for M365 tenants, and we are providing tenant-to-tenant migration for all the workloads, including the Power Platform, Vivo Engage, Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, Team Chat, OneDrive, and everything we have covered everything under our platform. So in today's session, we are going to speak about the Microsoft MCP Server for Enterprise, and currently it is in preview. So I welcome everyone to today's webinar on Microsoft MCP Server for Enterprise. And over the next 45 minutes, we will explore how Microsoft is revolutionizing AI enterprise integration through the Model Contest program. And in today's agenda, we will start with understanding why MCP matters, explore the enterprise-specific advantages Microsoft brings, and then dive into two live demonstrations using the MCP in action with both VS Code and ChatGPT. You will see the real queries against the Microsoft Graph and the Enter ID data. So why Model Contest Protocol or MCP? Let's start with the problem of MCP, what the MCP solves. The traditional AI systems are isolated. They can't access your real-time enterprise data. They hallucinate, or they are outdated, and or they can't take the actions. MCP server changes this by providing standardized protocol. Think it as a universal translator between your AI models and your enterprise systems. So, so why MCP? Now we shall come to this point. And it provides the standard communication. This provides the protocol for consistent way for AI models and your applications to speak with each other. And it also helps to reducing misunderstanding and error. And also it streamlines the integration. By standardizing the information exchange, the integration becomes easier and less time consuming for the developers. So it is going to be a universal standard, and the exchange, the data information exchange, everything is standardized. So developers, it is easy for the developers to consume as they are doing for REST APIs. And finally, automation. It simplifies the automated workflow by that rely on multiple sources of data. Now let's speak on the benefits of MCP protocol. In previous slide, we have discussed it is a universal standard, and they have standardized the data exchange. So this MCP server provides a uniform framework and making the data exchange between various systems faster and more reliable. And by using MCP, this protocol allows various models and systems to communicate efficiently, improving compatibility and collaboration. And since due to the clear definitions within this protocol, which helps to minimize mistakes and inconsistencies when sharing information across the platforms. So there are three core benefits make MCP transformative. The first one, real-time data access. Your AI can now query live database, APIs, and repositories. No more stale information. We are querying everything, the database, APIs, and repositories in live. Yeah, so you will be getting the data in live itself. It is always be updated. And second, the enhanced reasoning. By providing the relevant context like organizational chart or security policies or whatever data you have, AI delivers accurate and contextual responses. Third, autonomous workflows. The chain complex, it can chain complex tasks together. Imagine asking which admins lack MFA and create a report for my CSO. It can be all done in one go. It is simply we can do this everything in a simple way. That is the main benefit of using MCP and which can unlock various workflows in within your organization. So now why we should use Microsoft MCP Server versus building our own. So let me show you this critical comparison. See, Microsoft built-in MCP server gives you enterprise-grade security out of the box. Every operation uses the same application ID that you have been using in Azure AD, making the auditing seamless. You get the higher quality query generation, continuously tested by Microsoft product teams, and it crucially zero maintenance overhead. So you don't need to worry about the patches, fixes, or everything. It is completely zero maintenance for you. You no need to go get into the security or anything. Everything will be handled by Microsoft. And when you go for custom build, if you go for build means you own all the security risk, operational burden, fragmented experience across your organization. So my recommendation is that for MSPs and enterprises, start with Microsoft MCP Server for core identity and security scenarios. Only extend with the custom MCPs where you are absolutely need differentiation. So what are the key scenarios that you can query with Microsoft MCP Server for enterprise? See, this Microsoft MCP Server for enterprise is built on top of Microsoft Graph. And right now, as of today, it is this MCP server for enterprise provides only read-only access, not it is not supporting the write access. So we can have the some key scenarios like is MFA enabled for all the administrators? Which users have not signed in last month? Or how many guest users are there in my tenant? So may the unassigned licenses. These are the some of the key scenarios or example scenarios that you can perform with the MCP server for enterprise. And then uh, if you are looking for something specific with the Microsoft Intra, then we have some of these scenarios. For example, you can have security posture. Uh, you can query what are the DLP policies are there and what are the conditional access policies are there. How many are in enforcement? How many are in simulation? You can query that. And then you can have privileged access. You can query the users with the privileged role users, and then you can see who are all the users or user assignments with the PIM. And then you can perform application test, that is Azure AD application. You can query like what are the Azure AD applications with or in risk. Maybe the secret or certificate going to expire in next 3 months or something. You can query like those Azure AD applications, and then the access governance. You can do, you can check what are the review policies or the active reviews to be needs to be done, and also you can check who have access to what everything. And then you can unlock the scenarios regarding the devices are also. What are the stale devices in my tenant? What are the devices that have not been logged down for last 30 days or 60 days? You can do that. And also you can perform the investigations also. You can check the risky sign-ins or risky users. Those things you can do the investigations. Apart from that, you can, along with the Microsoft uh, MCP server for enterprise. Along with it, you tie this with Sentinel MCP server. In that case, you can make the investigation in real time, and you can optimize the spending and hygiene. How you can do that? You can just check what are the unassigned license in your environment. or what are the who are the users with the multiple assignments of the license. Maybe you might be using business premium and the enterprise E3 license in your tenant. For some of the users, you might have been assigned. There might be case both the licenses are assigned to them. I have came across this for many organizations. People, they might have assigned both the licenses to the user, but it is going to provide the same functionality. Either we can remove E3 license for those users, or if it is if he is going to be a if we are not required any enterprise features, we can just remove the E3 feature licenses. We can do that. So you can optimize the spending and check the license hygiene of the licenses also in your tenant. So what now? Let's speak about the cost and limitations of Microsoft MCP Server for Enterprise. Here, there is no additional cost or separate license required for Microsoft MCP Server for Enterprise. Only you must have the appropriate license for the data you are going to access. For example, if you are going to check on privileged identity management content, then in that case, you should have Enter ID P2 plan. Else you can't access this content. And also the requests are limited to 100 calls per minute per user. I think it is not going to be a great deal. As we are going to query with the LLM, we are not going to break this limit. And standard Microsoft graph throttling limits will going to be applied here. So it is not the main kicker to use this solution is that it has no additional cost or separate license. When it comes to security, as of today, the E5 Microsoft 365 E5 users are going to get security Copilot license. Additionally, with some uh, something a fixed issue. I am not sure on the number of issues they are going to allocate for each tenant. It is based on the number of users we have in our tenant. But the same functionality, we can do a subset of the security operations, at least with the read-only way, using this MCP server for enterprise without no additional cost. We will be in the demo, we will be seeing some queries similar to that. So let's have some broad picture of how the AI agents, MCP servers, and everything going to work together. So MCP is an open protocol that enables integration between an LLM application and external tools. See, we have an LLM and it is connected with an MCP server. The MCP server in turn connected with multiple MCP servers. And each of these MCP server exposes multiple tool sets. And these tool sets in turn works with a database, or the tools are going to call some some APIs, RESTful APIs or anything, or even it can query the data file system. Now let's try to understand this MCP sequence, how Microsoft 365, how Microsoft MCP Server for Enterprise is different, and how much efficient and secure it is. So let me going to provide you a MCP sequence or behind the scene how it is happening and how Microsoft have built this. So now let's look under the hood and see exactly what happens when a user clicks through MCP. So let's say you type in the prompt, is MFA enabled for all the administrators? Here is what happens. The first step is that the user submits the query. First, you submit your prompt or query to the MCP client. This could be Visual Studio Code with the GitHub Copilot or any other chat GPT or whatever it can be. So so you are typing in plain English like how many guest users are there in my tenant or so many unassigned license. So here no technical syntax or anything is required. Then the second step is that LLM extracts the user intent. The large language model inside the client analyzes your question and it extracts the core intent. It understands you are asking about administrators. You want to know about the MFA status. This requires querying the identity data. The AI reasons about what you are really asking. even if you phrase it conversationally. And the step 3 is that the request query example from the intent. Here goes where it gets smart. The MCP client does not immediately try to construct a graph API call. Instead, it asks the MCP server, given this intent about the checking the admin MFA status, what are the proven query patterns that have worked well? This is the critical quality step. The client is saying, help me formulate the best possible query before I execute them. There are, and then the next step is that the MCP server uses the RAG model to search the knowledge base of validated query patterns. Microsoft have built this knowledge base from thousands of real queries tested and optimized by their product team. RAG find the most similar example. For admin MFA status, it might retrieve a list of global admins without MFA enrolled. Or it can be get privileged role members with authentication method count. Or it can be check conditional access MFA requirement for admin roles. These are production tested patterns with the right graph API endpoints, correct OData filters, and efficient query structure. And then the MCP server sent these proven examples back to the client. Once now the LLM has reference implementations to learn from, not guessing the syntax, but working from the battle tested templates. And then armed with these examples, the LLM now generates the actual Microsoft API query. It will construct some queries like get slash directory role something with the filters and everything. This is informed by RAG examples using proper syntax, efficient filters, and the correct property names. This is why Microsoft says their server provides high quality generation quality compared to the generic LLM attempts. So finally, the graph request goes to the MCP server. Now we have submitted the query to the MCP server, and the MCP server executes the graph API call against the graph. And this is crucial. It uses your authenticated token. So here your intra ID identity, your permission, your security context, suppose if you are a security reader, you can read the admin data. If you are a regular user, the call fails with insufficient privileges. So here the key point is that MCP server does not bypass security, it enforces. Microsoft Graph processes the request and retrieves the actual data from intra ID, user objects, role assignments, authentication methods, whatever was requested. Then the Microsoft Graph returns the raw JSON response. This is the real data, where the user UIDs, display names, authentication method, everything the API exposes. At this point, it is still it is a technical data. A regular user don't want to read through 500 or thousands of lines of JSON. So the MCP server packages this raw response into the structured data result that follow the MCP protocol format. It might filter out unnecessary properties, standardize the structure, and add metadata about query execution. This is protocol part of MCP. MCP defining a standard way to return the data, so any MCP server, MCP client can process it consistently. And now combining the results with the LLM reasoning. Now the magic happens. MCP client take those structured results and feeds them into the LLM for reasoning. The AI combines the hard data from graph with its analytical capabilities. It can count. You have 12 global admins and it can filter. 3 of them lack MFA, and then it can calculate that is 25% of your admin population at risk. And it can prioritize. Here are the accounts sorted by last training days. This is AI-powered analysis over the real-time enterprise data, not just fetching information, but understanding it. And finally, delivering the answer, natural language answer to the user. So this is the complete story. So now there are 3 layers over this call, over the entire sequence. First is the intelligence layer, where your natural language question was understood, intent was extracted, proven query patterns were retrieved via the RAG. An optimal Graph API query was generated. And then the execution layer. The query was securely executed using your identity. Microsoft returned the real-time data. The results were standardized via MCP protocol. And finally, the reasoning layer. Here, the AI analyzed the data, not just it fetched it. A human readable answer was composed, actionable insights were provided. This entire 12-step sequence happens in 2 to 3 seconds. What it looks like a magic is actually is elegant orchestration of LLM reasoning, RAG enhanced query generation, secure graph API execution, standardized protocol communication, AI powered result analysis. And the key differentiator why Microsoft built matters is notice three things that make Microsoft MCP server superior to building your own. The knowledge, the RAG knowledge base. The Microsoft has built this with thousands of validated queries. And the permission model. Respecting the permission means the Microsoft has implemented the OAuth flows, token reference, conditional access complaints, and audit logging. Building this yourself takes months and introduces security risk. And finally, the standardized protocol. The structured data format ensures any MCP client can consume results. Microsoft maintains backward compatibility as the protocol evolves. So I think now you have understood behind the hood how what happens when you are making a query, a conversational query in your AI agent with your MCP client. So before we jump into the demos, let's talk about the security because I know that that's the first question your security team will ask. Who has access to what and who is it controlled? This slide shows the permission model for MCP server for enterprise, and it is actually quite elegant. Let me walk you through 4 key layers. First one is user identity. First one is the user identity. This is you, the signed in admin or the developer. Everything starts with your identity. The MCP server does not use a service account or shared credentials. It uses your Entra ID identity through OAuth 2. So if you don't have permission to read user data in the portal, you won't be able to query it through MCP either. Your existing Entra ID roles, the global reader, security reader, user administrator, all apply here. Nothing bypasses your existing RBAC. And then the layer 2, MCP client. The MCP client, this is the AI tool you are using. It can be VS Code, ChatGPT, Cloud, or any MCP compatible client. The client authenticates now on your behalf and sends the natural language queries to the MCP server. The client needs specific client scope to interact with the server. In this case, you see three key scopes: MCP user dot read dot all. It allows the client to read your user profile, and then you are providing read-only access for the groups and audit logs. These scopes are granted during the provisioning step we will see in the demo. They are delegated permissions, meaning the client acts on your behalf of you alone, the signed in user, not as an application permission. It works only with the delegated permission. And then the layer 3, the MCP server. Now the MCP server itself, this is the Microsoft managed service. It translates your natural language questions into your actual graph API calls. The server has the server scopes that define what is allowed to access. You can see here it says all Entra APIs, but you may notice the asterisks at the bottom. Currently only a subset, but will expand to match all Entra APIs over the time. Right now it is in preview. The server can access users, groups, guest accounts, PAM, data, application and service principles, directory roles and assignments, sign-in logs, audit logs, licenses and subscriptions. As the preview mature, Microsoft will expand this to cover complete Entra API service. Currently, it provides only read-only access to the identity and security data, not the write access. And then the resources. Finally, the resources, this is the Microsoft Graph and your Entra ID tenant data itself. The MCP server queries the data using the standard REST APIs. respecting the same throttling limits, data residency rules, and compliance bodies that any graph API client would. In this example, you see application list as a resource. When a user asks, show me all the applications with expiring certificates, the MCP server queries the application endpoint, filters the data, and returns the result in natural language. So here is why this model is secure by design. No new attack surface. The MCP server only has the permission you already have. If you are a global reader, you can read the data. If you are not, you can't. It is your identity, your token, your permissions. Second one is the delegated, not application permission. This is not a service account running with application permission. It is delegated permission, meaning every query is tied to a specific user identity and least privilege by default. The client scopes and server scopes are explicitly defined and minimal. The server can't write data, can't access mailboxes, or Teams content. It can't modify configurations. It's read-only identity queries. And finally, the single app ID for audit. Every MCP operation is logged in Entra ID under the same application ID. If your security team asks who queried your PAM data, you can pull in the sign-in logs and exactly see which user from which client and at what time. Compare this to your custom build MCP server. You would have to implement your own workflows, manage service principals, handle token refresh, build audit logging, and secure all of it yourself. Microsoft gives you this out of the box. So now let's jump onto the demo. So I have opened PowerShell 7. Suppose if you are using PowerShell 5 or whatever it comes with your default Windows OS, Windows 11, please don't use it. Kindly install PowerShell 7. Only with PowerShell 7, these latest Entra commandlets are working properly. So very first thing is that we need to install the module, this module. Yeah, Microsoft Entra.beta. You need to install this module. In my case, I have already installed it. And then now I need to connect the Entra scope. Now I need to connect with the Entra. I'm using this. Let me complete the verification. So now I have connected to a specific tenant. Now let's verify if the connection is correct using this command. Let get Entra context. So here you can see that I have been connected with the intra tenant using this credential. And then now this is the real key step. This is the key step in this demo. So when you execute this commandlet, grant intra beta MCP server permissions, with what it will do is that it will create few applications in your intra tenant, and it will provide the required permissions. in the next steps, we are going to see about what it is and everything. So now I'm going to see whether the required MCP permissions and everything has been properly created or not. So there are two Azure AD applications that got created in the tenant. We are going to see about those. Let me go to Enterprise app in my tenant, and then I will search with this ID for the newly created apps. So one app is created for Visual Studio Code. When you explore this Azure AD app, you may notice that you will get the idea of what are the permissions that have been granted to this Azure AD app. You can see all the MCP related permissions has been assigned here. And also you can notice that all the permissions have additional prefix MCP dot dot. So it is something similar to your existing scopes in your Graph API, but additionally here we have a prefix called MCP dot in front of all the permissions. And then this is one of the applications, and another application and another Azure AD application created for the MCP client itself. So an Azure AD application has been created, but here there won't be any permissions at all created. So this is, we have completed the key step. So you need to run this command at grant intra beta MCP server permissions dash application name slash space Visual Studio Code. It will provide the required permission to your Visual Studio Code. This will create two Azure AD applications in your intra tenant, and one is for Visual Studio Code itself with all the required MCP permissions, and another one for as a MCP client. And finally, let's see what are the permissions that have been assigned to our client, our Visual Studio client. So these are the permissions that have been assigned. We have already seen this in the enterprise applications itself. So all the required prerequisites have been done. The first thing is we need to install this module, Microsoft.intra.beta, and then we need to connect with our intra tenant, your Office 365 tenant, with the required permissions, the application.readWrite.all and directory.readAll and delegated permission grant.readWrite.all. And the third step is the key one. Here, the required Azure AD applications cart will be provisioned in your tenant with the required permissions. So these are the three key steps that you need to perform. Now everything has been set and provisioned. Now let's use the Visual Studio Code for the demo. Let me go to Visual Studio Code. Here in the extensions, you can just search for MCP space Here you can notice that Microsoft MCP Server for Enterprise is available. I have for this demo, I have already installed it. I have already installed this MCP Server in my Visual Studio Code. Here and also I have already authenticated and connected with my demo tenant itself. So once you have authenticated and connected this MCP server with your required tenant, you need to start the server. So currently this MCP server is running. Let's give few queries and see how it goes. So let me give a simple query. Which of the users have not signed in for last 30 days? Okay, let me reconnect the tenant and run the demo once again. Let me stop the server. Let me disconnect the agent server also. I'm restarting the server again. Now it is going to authenticate with my demo tenant. So I think now it is got connected to the MCP server, got connected with my demo tenant. Now let's try on the demo part again. Here you can see that it is contacting the MCP server and it is optimizing which query it needs to, which graph query it needs to generate. Here you can clearly see it is searching for the relevant graph API examples, and then it is form framing the query, and then finally running it and to check everything. Here you can see that the MCP client runs runs for each of the user and identifying if the user has signed in last 30 days or not. And finally, we are getting a report like who are all the users who have not signed in for last 30 days. Now let's see another example. First, we have seen about users. Now let's see about Azure AD application registrations within your tenant. We are going to see how many Azure AD apps with soon to expire certificate and secrets. Here also first it is trying to retrieve the graph API examples to frame the required query. So now I get the list of Azure AD applications where the client secrets are going to expire soon, or that is within next 90 days. So these are some of the simple examples. Now what we are going to do is that apart from MCP server for enterprise, I am going to integrate MCP server for learn also. Now we have the MCP server for enterprise and Microsoft Learner also. Let me start the source. Now I'm going to use both the things. For example, what we are going to do is that I'm going to prompt like analyze my M365 tenant and identify top 3 identity and access risk. It may be admins without MFA, risky guest access, or stale privileged roles. For each risk, show me the real data from my tenant that proves this is an issue and summarize the official Microsoft Learn guidance on how to fix it, including a link to the most relevant doc. So I'm going to prompt this and see how it goes. I am going to have a new chat for this. Now, this Visual Studio Code chat going to use both the MCP server for enterprise and learn also. Using learn, it is going to learn what are the best practices and how you can query everything. So these are why I have provided the example of learn MCP server with the MCP server for enterprise is that it is something similar, a subset of operations that you do with the Copilot, security Copilot. You can do it from here also. For security Copilot, you need to have a separate license, and it involves additional cost for your tenant. But it is this MCP server for enterprises comes at no additional cost, and you can do initial security assessments and everything using this itself. So this is the real example that I am going showing it here. So it lists it lists now the global administrators without the MFA with the real data and what is the Microsoft guideline, what I have to do, and then it is showing that is the second is the stale privileged accounts and what is the Microsoft guidance. So this is how it works. So this is one of the simple example I'm showing for the scenario of using both the MCP servers to improve your security posture in your tenant. So right now we have seen how you can connect your Visual Studio Code with the MCP server for enterprise and make graph API queries and retrieve the data, the identity related data from your tenant. And we have seen how you can connect the Microsoft Learn also and make quick initial assessments, security assessments. Now let's see how you can use this MCP server within ChatGPT. So to use MCP server in ChatGPT, the very first step you need to do is that go to your intra admin center and go to app registrations and create a new application. So I already created an Azure AD application for this demo purpose and go to permissions and grant the required permission. Click the add permission and select MCP server for enterprise. You need to select that and then you need to add all the required permissions. I have already added all the permissions here. So with this you are done. For connecting this with ChatGPT, you need to create an Azure AD application and provide the MCP server for enterprise permissions. We have added that. Now note down the client ID or the application ID. Copy the application ID. And one more step you need to do, go to authentication and then add a redirect URI. In our case, what we need to select is mobile and desktop applications. We have to select this option and then provide a redirect URI. I have already added the required redirect URI for ChatGPT. For ChatGPT, this is the standard URI we need to add in the Azure AD applications. We have added this. Now, let me go to ChatGPT. Go to settings. I open ChatGPT and go to settings and then go to apps and then go to advanced settings and you need to turn on this developer mode. You need to turn on this developer mode and then you need to create an app here. Here we need to paste the client ID that we have copied from Azure AD in the intra tenant. I need to just copy paste it and we need to provide the MCP server URL. I have already created one. So I just provided the Azure AD app ID we have copied from Intra and pasted there. And I have provided the required URL for the MCP server. Our MCP server, in this case, our MCP server is enterprise MCP server for enterprise. And this is the URL for the same. Now let's try to connect this. Let me try to connect again. So the MCP server for enterprise is now connected with the ChatGPT. And then I'm going to use this MCP server for enterprise. And we are going to make some queries and see the same queries that we have tried earlier. So let's see the same one, Azure AD applications with the soon to expire certificates and secrets. I think something is not good. So this is the basic step. Go to settings, and then you need to create a new app. Or when you are creating the new app, you need to input the Azure AD applications that you have created specifically for this. And then you need to provide the URL for the same. And then once you connect it, it will start running as we have seen in the Visual Studio code chat itself. The same way it will run in ChatGPT also, but for some reasons it is not working. I am not going to debug or troubleshoot here right now. So with this, the demo was completed. And this is the reference URL. It is going to be a very simple one. You can try it right away for your tenant. And most of the people might ask, what is the difference between the MCP server for enterprise and Copilot, security Copilot? So security Copilot, the main difference is that the MCP server for enterprise is read-only operation, You can have the some security assessments, but with the security copilot, you will get the right access also, but it is going to be additional license overhead cost everything. Suppose if you are looking for something, you want the right access also, then you can explore Agent 365. It is currently in preview. It is also currently in preview where you get MCP server for right operations. There are different set of MCP server, each for Outlook, one for Teams, one for Word, like that. There are a large set of MCP servers under Agent 365. You can try that. Thank you.
All right, Perumal, thank you so much. Thanks for your time. And that was a good demo heavy session where we have made sense about MCP Server for Enterprise, and we have been seeing how the AI agents helps us in translating the natural language prompts with all the Microsoft Graph queries that you have been working around. I really appreciate your time and looking forward to join hands with you on more demo sessions as well. Thank you so much, and thanks others for joining too.
Thank you, Faraz. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.